Considering how many comic book stories involve alternate realities, radical retcons, and fractured multiverses, it's genuinely surprising when people get up in arms over race or gender swaps. I know they are a vocal minority no matter what they like to believe, but it's really baffling how they treat a simple gender swap in an Elseworld story as an unforgivable act of cultural vandalism. The ultimate irony, of course, is that in an infinite multiverse, there is almost certainly a reality where those very same critics are women themselves, and who knows, maybe they are just as furious about the fact that we have a male Jervis Tetch in our world. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the second season of Batman Caped Crusader introduced a female version of the Mad Hatter that is mostly unrecognisable. Hattie Tetch is a TV and radio personality with her own show, where she speaks to Gotham about current events and has the occasional interview. And quite predictably, there were shrill cries from the usual suspects, outraged at how Jervis Tetch had been disrespected. And they said this without knowing any details of her storyline or character traits. Why, it's almost like they're saying that women are inherently inferior. Surely not. But the reason why most people had a more balanced response to this is potentially because they are aware that the Mad Hatter is, with the best will in the world, a D-list villain. What's more, the creepy version that those people are so attached to is a relatively new take on the character. And to illustrate this, let's quickly delve into the character's comic book history. Now, the Mad Hatter debuted in Batman number 49, published in 1948. Here, he was an Alice in Wonderland-themed thief that was trying to steal rare copies of Through the Looking Glass. After Batman defeated him, the original Mad Hatter essentially disappeared for decades. In his place, 1956 brought us an entirely different Mad Hatter. He was tall, with red hair, and his only real personality trait was his obsession with hats. This is the version that made his way to screen in the 60s Batman show, which notably introduced a bold weapon into his arsenal, a hypnotic hat. For as popular as that Batman show had been, the comic book writers spent the subsequent decades trying to get away from the campy antics associated with it, and in the 1980s the original Mad Hatter returned, along with a pet chimpanzee. While they wanted to steer clear of that 60s show, the writers did start to introduce more fantastical hats into his arsenal. He had a less goofy hypnotic hat, a headpiece that could read minds, and eventually hats that allowed him to control people. Then Grant Morrison and Dave McKean released their seminal graphic novel Arkham Asylum: A Serious House on Serious Earth, and they added a wrinkle that would take the character in a very sinister direction. They made the allusion to Through the Looking Glass's author Lewis Carroll's attraction to children a part of Mad Hatter's character, with a disturbing line about little blonde girls. This dark take on the Mad Hatter was only alluded to after this book because perhaps it was a step too far for mainstream superhero comics. Arguably, the biggest influence on the general idea of the Mad Hatter came from writer Paul Dini. When the team behind Batman the Animated Series tackled Tetch in 1992, they ruthlessly stripped away 40 years of convoluted comic baggage, ditching the pet chimpanzee, the hat collection, and that whole idea of there being an imposter. Instead, Dini reimagined Mad Hatter as an entitled guy who felt the world owed him sexual gratification. Drawing direct inspiration from the tragic 1988 ESL workplace shooting, BTAS turned the Mad Hatter into a meek, pathetic scientist who weaponized mind control technology to force the affection of a female co-worker who dared to reject him. And this really is my key point. The Mad Hatter has always been a bit of a blank slate of a character, open to reinvention. And I'm not saying that you're not allowed to have preferences or that you must love this new Mad Hatter, but what I am saying is that claiming that these characters are set in stone and cannot be altered is just wrong. Personally, I would have preferred a more overtly villainous Mad Hatter, but I see what the Caped Crusader writers were going for and I do enjoy it. This Mad Hatter is very clearly modelled after the real-world gossip columnist Hedda Hopper, who was at the height of her power during the golden age of cinema in the 1940s and 50s. Hopper was as famous for her fierce conservative political crusades as she was for her signature fashion statement, wearing outrageously elaborate, extravagant hats that became her visual trademark. So yeah, if you're a fan of that era of media, the temptation to turn her into the Mad Hatter is understandable. What I really like about this take on the character is how they use the concept of mind control. Now, this Mad Hatter doesn't literally control minds, but she does influence public opinion through her TV and radio show. Hattie's Tea Party is the most popular show in Gotham, and Hattie presents herself as a kindly, prim and proper lady who has genuine concerns about the safety of the people in Gotham, especially the poor little children. She doesn't have a high opinion of people in Gotham, though. She says that there are many weak-minded people out there who would fall prey to charismatic charlatans. Oh, but not her viewers, though. No, they're all very smart for listening to what she has to say. So yeah, she may present herself as the bastion of decency and Gotham's moral compass, but off camera she's surly, mean-spirited and drunk. As soon as the cameras stop rolling, she demands a drink, a hard drink, and then races off in her car. Drinking and driving? Won't somebody think of the children? We don't learn a lot about her backstory, but she says that she was born and raised in the east of Gotham, the most deprived area, and she isn't afraid of getting into a fistfight. But her most defining trait is that she is not a fan of Batman. She acts a little bit like Batman's version of J. Jonah Jameson. It doesn't matter if he's done something positive or not, she will always find a way to spin the story against him, even when he saves lives. And she is a big fan of Rupert Thorne. As we all know, Thorne is a ruthless gangster who has bought most of the politicians in Gotham. He also has his tendrils in the GCPD thanks to Bullock and Flass. Arguably the most villainous thing she does this season is reveal the identity of the prosecution's star witness, Julian Gregory, Thorne's former accountant. Because of this, Thorne sends his men after Gregory to try and silence him. The second season opens with Thorne finally facing justice and being put on trial for his crimes, but Hattie presents him as an upstanding businessman who's being bullied by the police to make up for their own failings. She even makes a rare in-person live broadcast from Thorne's trial on the day the verdict was delivered. Thorne had got to the judge, so he was acquitted, and Hattie is elated. And when Thorne meets his #1 fan on the steps of the courthouse, all he can say is, "Nice hat." But it doesn't end there. When a cult worshipping the Bat Demon Barbatos murders a burglar mid-job in the museum, Hattie accuses Batman of the crime. While it's clear to the police that the burglar was killed by multiple assailants and that Batman works alone, Hattie accuses them of incompetence and brings in Commissioner Gordon for an interview. Unbeknownst to her, the Bat cult had infiltrated her production company, though. Her producer, Darla Landry, is a member of the cult. In fact, she seems to be dressed like some high priestess. The cult consists of young, poverty-stricken people who have been sold a lie about a made-up god whose coming will change their lives for the better. When they took the treasures from the museum and it wasn't sufficient to summon Barbatos, because he doesn't exist, their leader, the Mad Monk, told them to go after Batman, who he claimed was Barbatos' avatar, and to get a sample of his blood. Next on their list was a sacrifice of one ally and one enemy to Barbatos. Jim Gordon the ally and Hattie Tetch the enemy. I'll get into this more in a separate video about the Mad Monk, but essentially the cultists were being manipulated and bringing Gordon and Tetch to their secret hideout was not a good idea. And when Darla reveals her connection to the cult, Hattie's reaction is priceless. She calls her an ungrateful tramp and fires her. She's so confident that she's going to get out of this situation that it's almost admirable. The cult must have got fed up of hearing Hattie talk, because eventually they gag her, and I genuinely got a laugh out of how when Batman arrives, he frees Gordon but leaves Hattie tied to the altar. Sure, Batman can count on Gordon to untie her while he holds off the cultists, but I thought it was funny how he practically ignored her. Despite the fact that Batman saved her life, she still won't give him an iota of praise. She changes her tune about Commissioner Gordon, crediting him with saving her life, and when he brings up Batman's role, she dismisses him. And I should out that Batman is one of her most avid listeners. There are a few times throughout the season where he's listening to her show and gets really caught up in what she's saying. Lucius Fox sums her up best when he says that she says scandalous things because it's her job to. She's an entertainer who needs to keep people glued to the screen. But that backfires on her because among her viewers is the Joker. When he makes his move on the city, he publicly declares his campaign of terror on Hattie's show. And the starting gun that kicks things off is Hattie's murder. Joker poisons her, leaving her to die horribly on camera in front of her massive audience. Joker then takes her seat and calmly tells everyone what he has in mind for them. But Hattie's role doesn't end there. Unbeknownst to everyone, the victims of the toxin serve a secondary purpose. After they die, a gas builds up inside of them until it eventually forces them to sit upright and spray it on whoever is near them. She was one of the delivery systems of this combined Joker toxin / blockbuster formula gas that turned the police into demented laughing zombies. And that's kind of ironic considering she spent her entire career projecting a fake image of moral superiority while using her platform to manipulate weak-minded people into doing her bidding. In the end, Hattie Tetch became a literal helpless weapon of mass mind control in the hands of a true lunatic, turned into a corpse puppet spewing literal toxicity into Gotham. This tragic, twisted end highlights why Hattie Tetch works so well as an adaptation. Caped Crusader didn't strip away what makes the Mad Hatter a compelling villain. It simply translated the core of the most prominent version of that character, forcing one's will upon the minds of others, into a threat that fit that 1940s noir aesthetic. Just as Paul Dini looked at the anxieties of 1992 and turned Jervis Tetch into a cautionary tale of entitled male obsession, Caped Crusader looks at the era of golden age media and turned Tetch into the embodiment of weaponized press and public hysteria. So when people whine that turning the Mad Hatter into a woman destroys the character, all they're really doing is revealing how little they understand it. There will be a small number of you that won't like hearing this, but frankly, you need to. The Mad Hatter has spent 75 years being reinvented, retconned, and reimagined to reflect the dark anxieties of whatever era he or she inhabits. Far from being cultural vandalism, Hattie Tetch is just the latest step in a long, proud comic book tradition of taking a D-list villain and turning them into something genuinely interesting. But now I want to throw it out to you. Do you prefer villains like the Mad Hatter using sci-fi gimmicks like hypnotic mind control hats? Do you enjoy seeing them translated into more grounded real-world threats like media propaganda? Let me know in the comments which version of Tetch's mind control you prefer. Special thanks as ever to my people, my channel members, whose names have been scrolling on screen for a while now. They actually voted for this video to be made, and if you want to see your name in future videos and get early access to all of my upcoming video essays, then join the channel now. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.